Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is Ivor Chester, music therapist and balance coach. Today, I had an experience like I do every day when I drive the car. As I was cruising along the streets of Dallas, when you do get to cruise and you're not backed up in traffic, or even when you are, I have my radio on. Now, we don't listen to Sirius. It's regular radio because it's a different experience. And it keeps you... I've had Sirius. It was nice, no commercials, I guess, but there's enough commercials in Dallas, and I have a broad enough taste to where I could listen to really a lot of different kinds of music. So I don't mind being a bit of a button pusher on the radio. No comments, please. So I have this moment, and I'm listening to, of course, Stairway to Heaven. You know the song. What emotional responses do you have to that song? Because I have my own. It's not one of my top favorite pieces. It's just not my cup of tea, I suppose. You can't fault it for its musical abilities, for the investment they put in their talents. It's just, I don't know. It was constantly on the radio back in my day, and I guess I got kind of toasted on it. And I think about that whenever I hear it played. But lately, instead of tuning it and moving on to something else, I actually been sitting and listening to it. Then after the song was over, the radio, they played right after that, Missing You by John Waite. Okay, this was a 70s song, what was Stairway to Heaven, like 73, 74. And then Missing You is from the early 80s. And it's a totally different genre of rock. It was really bad programming. I remember when K-Love was trying to go full oldies, and they had a whole lot of doo-wop, 50s doo-wop style, and then they would play music from the 70s. It just didn't gel. It was too jarring for people. They were two different generations of music. One kind of before Elvis and one post-Elvis. And people were just not reacting well to it, so they ended up dropping the doo-wop, which was a shame, though you can pick up the 50s style of music on, again, Sirius XM. I don't know any stations around these days that play that. That and B-list music, which we'll cover again. My whole point to this is, music, I've been reading some studies on it, and music, radio itself is the #1 genre for happiness over surfing on the net, over playing on your phone, over video games. It is the #1 genre for happiness. Now, so what? Well, if you're a marketer, you want to kind of get in on that happiness quotient. And so they love to tout the idea that listening to music boosts people's emotions, specifically local radio, not, again, satellite radio. People can listen to it and feel like they're having a social moment, listening to Susie and Johnny DJ chitter-chatter back and forth and laughing too hard at the A-list DJ who happens to be on the air. And then shooting it over to the traffic guy who's, well, you know, things aren't as good as they could be. And then Mr. Weatherman, who doesn't really have a whole lot to offer during the rest of the year when it's not spring or fall here in Texas. It's either sunny and hot or it's just not. So this emotional connectivity brought to us by radio can be a great thing. And I really encourage people to be a part of that. But be aware that they've poured billions of dollars into research and development of playlists and what time the song is played and how often the song is played. That's why you'll hear Tina Turner songs less than you'll hear Bryan Adams songs. And certain Bryan Adams songs, like The Summer of '69, is an overplay song. Whereas John Cougar Mellencamp's song Jack and Diane is played even more so. And at certain times of the year. And what time of the day. to get you going, get you motivated. So be aware that there is a degree of manipulation that is happening, and normally it's quite innocuous. It really doesn't matter. On the other hand, if you're in need of something else, if you need to be more in control of what you're playing, like I need to right now, you need to be creating your own playlists on your phone. You need to have playlists at home. You need to have something that you can plug in. And if you're driving an older car, I have a Jeep Grand Cherokee 1996. It doesn't speak Bluetooth. It doesn't speak wireless. It didn't hardly know anything about the internet to speak of. But the car gets me from point A to point B. I've got a phone. I've got a Bluetooth speaker that I put in there and listen to, and I can control it. Because when I'm coming home from, say, a psych hospital or a tough session that I've done, I need to be in control of my music. What are you doing to control your music? Remember, if you're not controlling your music, it's controlling you. And if you're listening to radio, it's controlling you. You have to be in control of your music always, always. If you're going to drift, then be aware of what's happening. And you have to be cool with that, but always be aware. It's like drifting on a tide. One quick story, and pardon me if I've told it before. I love this story. It's a good memory. When I was a kid, we used to go down to Galveston because we lived in Houston. We'd escape down to Galveston. And, of course, the beach was lined with hundreds of thousands of people. Mom would buy these garish beach blankets. And they were huge and they were ugly. And, you know, and I still have some of them. And some of them were kind of cool. They were lighthouses or whatever. But we had a yellow car, a yellow 65 Impala. And back then, you could pull right up onto the beach, and Mom would open up the car and put the blankets, the towels, right up on the car. Why? So we could identify the car. Why? Because you get into the water, and the currents at Galveston, the tides, will sweep you down the beach. Now, there was undertow warnings, too, and that's a different thing. But this would sweep you down the beach, and you're bobbing along with everybody else, and all of a sudden, hey, where's the car? Well, it's about a mile back down that way. And you need to get out of the water and slog all the way back to find your car. I remember being a young boy and thinking, oh my gosh, did Mom leave? Or, you know, Mom and Dad pull away? Surely they wouldn't do that. And I knew they didn't, but did they? When you're listening to somebody else's music plan, their music format, their music programming, make sure you're aware that you're being carried along in the tide. Otherwise, you will leave yourself behind. Otherwise, you get left behind. Be in control. All right? Make your lists. You can go back a few of these and get an idea of how to set up those playlists. Until then, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at IvorChester3. And your plan of action is to... I want you to go to your car and I want you to look at what you're listening. If you live in the Dallas area, how many radio stations have you got actually buttoned in? You know, like K-Love. Because, by the way, baby boomers are the #1 listeners, followed very closely behind, by millennials. And this is dependent upon the study. I've seen both. They're kind of neck and neck. So the main consumers are those two. But the #1 format is still country. What are you listening to? Go to your car. I want you to find 5 or 6 stations that you listen to. WRR, for example, which is our lone classical station, one of the last in the country. Do you have a country one plugged in? Do you have a couple of rock ones? You have an old rock, you got new rock? Do you have any kind of jazz station? We have a city-owned jazz station, which I've spoken at before. Here, it's over off Lakewood, and I think it's 88.1, and it's a good station. I also listen to. Remember, your emotions have to have a wide variety of music. Okay, keep in touch. Leave your comments below. I'd love to hear them, and we'll speak to you later. Bye now, if I can find it.